this is Fred. If you like this video, make sure that you hit that like button below. Also, share this video with your friend. Leave me a comment in the comment section.
Your attitude determines your latitude. Zig Ziglar. Since the wake of the current COVID pandemic, people's attitudes have been significantly displayed. Not just American but the entire world has sunken into confirmation bias. All over the world, people's attitudes have been showing up at record numbers. This narrative is about the drastic increase in negative attitudes over the past 2 years. Here are some things you can do to have a more positive attitude. Don't look now, but your attitude is showing. What is an attitude? An attitude is a construct. It's a construct that represents an individual degree of like or dislike for an object, event, or situation. Attitudes are both positive and negative. This is often referred to as attitude object, so the attitude is connected to the object. A person can be in conflict or ambivalent toward an object, event, or situation. These themes can be race, ethnicity, sports events, NASCAR racing, sex roles, or political affiliation. It's also important for you to understand that attitudes are judgments developed on the ABC model. A is for affect, B is for behavior, and C is for connection. The affect respond is an emotional response that it expresses an individual preference for an object. The behavior respond is a verbal indication or tendency to act a certain way. The cognitive respond is a cognitive evaluation of the object or the entity which constitutes an individual's belief about the object. Based on research, most attitudes are the results of experiences, observations, social roles and norms, classical and operant conditioning, and behaviors learned from their environment. Attitudes are judgments and can be changed through persuasion or self-empowerment. Karl Ivar Hovland was a psychologist working at Yale University and for the U.S. Army. He and his colleagues, through experimentation and research, developed the social judgment theory of attitude change. Hovland was also instrumental in the theory of groupthink. He found that the ability of someone to resist persuasion by a certain group depended on your degree of belonging to the group. His team found that there are 4 components to his source, message, channel receiver, SMCR, model which is used to affect the persuasiveness of a message. The SMCR model consists of 4 components: source variables, message variables, channel variables, and receiver variables. Hovland argued that manipulating each of these variables can influence attitude change. Hovland traced causality between variables with various elements in the SMCR model on persuasion. 1. Sources, high credibility versus low credibility, and sleeper effect. 2. Types of messages, one-sided versus two-sided, and fear appeals, and 3. Channels of cognitive and 4. Affective changes. Hovland found that intelligence and self-esteem are affect persuasiveness characteristics. Target characteristics refer to the person who receives and processes a message. He found that more intelligent people are less easily persuaded by one-sided messages. Another variable that has been studied is self-esteem. Hovland found that people with higher self-esteem are less easily persuaded than lower self-esteem people. The research showed that moderate self-esteem people are more easily persuaded than higher or lower self-esteem people. The second variable is source characteristics, which includes expertise, trustworthiness, and interpersonal attraction or attractiveness. The expertise or credibility of a perceived message has been found to be a key valuable in a persuasive message. For example, if readers read a report about health and believe it came from a professional medical journal, they are more easily persuaded than if they believed it came from a popular newspaper. Psychologists have found that there is a long-lasting effect when telling people a message. For example, when a message came from a credible source, it disappears over a period of several weeks. This is a so-called sleeper effect. The final variable is message characteristics. The nature of the message plays a role in persuasion. Hence, presenting both sides of a story is useful to help change attitudes. Attitudes can be learned in a variety of ways. Have you considered how advertisers and television has used classical conditioning to influence your attitude toward a particular product? Advertisers, with the help of industrial and organizational psychologists, have developed attractive and appealing imagery that often causes you to develop a positive association with a particular beverage, clothing line, fashion, food, sport event, politicians, and even the detergent you buy. Operant conditioning can also be used to influence how attitudes develop. Imagine a young man who has just started smoking. Whenever he lights up a cigarette, people complain, chastise him, and ask him to leave their vicinity. The negative reinforcement from those around him eventually causes him to develop an unfavorable opinion of smoking, and he decides to give up the habit. People also learn attitudes by observing people around them. When someone you admire greatly promote a particular attitude, you are more likely to develop the same beliefs. For example, children spend a great deal of time observing the attitudes of their parents and usually begin to demonstrate similar outlooks. Most information about your attitude come from a guy named Carl Gustav Jung, who was a renowned Swiss psychologist, influential thinker, and the founder of analytical psychology. He helped develop the depths of psychology as we know it today. Carl Jung's theory is called the collective unconscious. He believed that human beings are connected to each other and their ancestors through a shared set of experiences. We use this collective consciousness to give meaning to the world. He was essential in establishing that human psyche is by nature religious, and that we should explore it in depth. Jung said to understand attitudes, we had to understand the psyche through exploring the world of dreams, art, mythology, religion, and philosophy. Jung also emphasized the importance of balance and harmony. He argued that people rely too heavily on science and logic and would benefit from integrating spirituality and appreciation of the unconscious rims. To be a holistic being, Jung proposed the theory of individuation. Individuation is the process of integrating the conscious with the unconscious while maintaining conscious autonomy. Individuation is the central concept of analytical psychology and focus on attitudes and attitudes adjustments. Individualism emphasizes the intrinsic worth of the individual. Individualists promote the exercise of one's goals and desires and to value independence and self-reliance and advocate those interests of the individual should achieve precedence over the state or a social group while opposing external interference upon one's own interests by society or institutions such as the government. The principle of individuation describes the manner in which a thing is identified as distinguished from other things. Individuation is a process of transformation, whereby the personal and collective unconscious is brought into consciousness by means of dreams, active imagination, or free association, to be assimilated into the whole personality. It is a completely natural process necessary for the integration of the psyche to take place. Jung considered individuation to be the central process of human development. One of the major characteristics of attitude is emotions. Emotions are a common component of how persuasion, social influence, and making attitude changes work with people. Emotions work hand in hand with the cognitive process of how we think about an issue or a situation. Take a moment and think about how your attitude has been showing over the past few years. What emotional appeals have you heard lately? What competing messages have you heard? Did you think about or reflected on any emotional appeals messages recently? What are some common competitive advertising, health, campaign, and political message you were exposed to? Think about U.S. most recent presidential elections. What kind of messages were you exposed to? What kind of emotions appeals have recently shaped your attitude? Were they positive or negative messages? Did you become a part of any particular groupthink? It is important that we pay attention to our emotions and how our emotions influence mental representation. We all organize our ideas and your feelings around our experiences, thus directing a dynamic influence on our behavior. Some research on emotion and attitude changes focused on the way people process information. This is a key aspect to attitude change. What that means is in the process of interpreting the message, whether it's sports event, car racing, biking, boxing, whatever, when you're in the process of interpreting the information, you're making an emotional and a cognitive process and connection at that time. Motivation is not enough to make an attitude change. If you want to change your attitude, you have to start reinterpreting the messages you get from yourself, family, friends, and your community. Research states to change attitude is to think about the cognitive and the affective components of an attitude, think through the process, and then begin matching emotions to what is being interpreted. However, there are a few things that stand in the way of a person making an effective and cognitive connection. These things are fear, jealousy, disgust, indignation, and anger. Fear is one of the most studied ones of these emotions. We know that a lot of people use fear to persuade people to do things or to change their attitude toward an object, event, or situation. Fear is related to loss of control, which is an innate response of humans. If you are displaying a negative attitude, then you may want to pay attention to your fear and emotional appeal. Also pay attention the source. Even if the negative source is you, then reject the messenger, which may cause you to adjust your attitude. Research show that there is an optimal emotional level in attitude change. If there is not enough motivation, the attitude will not change. If the emotional appeal is overdone, the motivation can be paralyzed, thereby preventing attitude change. If your attitude is showing, then you'll probably responding to negative emotions, negative feelings, or negative beliefs or something that may be threatening your internal processes. It has been found that humor or someone with lower political messages often resist fear, emotional, or angry appeal messages. What we fear. 1. We fear what our ancestral history has prepared us to fear. 2. We fear what we cannot control. 3. We fear what is immediate. 4. We fear what is most readily available in memory. 5. We fear too little, the less dramatic and ongoing threats that claim lives. So, what messages has the greatest impact on emotional appeal? There are 4 features that we can look at. They are self-efficacy, attitude accessibility, issue involvement, and message source features. Self-efficacy is a perception of one's own human ability. In other words, it is the perception of our own ability to deal with the situation. If we feel like we can deal with the situation, we will change our attitude or we will monitor our attitude accordingly. There is also research that suggests that messages features such as source, nonverbal communication, message content, and receiver differences can impact the emotional impact or fear appeal. For example, if I present enough fear into a person or on film about alcohol and drugs or the danger of car racing or dangerous cigarette smoking, I can't influence a person's attitude and feelings about whether he want to change. It is also very important to understand that every emotional appeal message does not fit everyone, so there's no one message that appeal to everyone. So the strategy that I may use today may not work for a group, and another strategy may not work for another group, so it's important for me to understand how connected is that person with his emotional appeal and what am I presenting. I hope this video stimulated your attitude, emotions, and influence attitude accessibility, which refers to the activation of an attitude from memory. Attitudes are programmed into our memory, and how quickly we can access that memory determines the type of attitude that will follow an object, event, or situation. Recall that past experiences influence attitudes, and if you want to make an adjustments in your behavior, use some humor. The ability to laugh at yourself of a negative attitude is an antidote to resolution. Your attitude also determines the amount of resistance. If you have a low resistance, then your attitude is free to flow. If you have a high resistance, you may dislike the contents, this video, or how this message is presented. Cognitive dissonance, changing to match behavior. In some cases, people may actually alter their attitudes in order to better align them with their behavior. Cognitive dissonance is a phenomenon in which a person experiences psychological distress due to conflicting thoughts or beliefs. In order to reduce this tension, people may change their attitudes to reflect their other beliefs or actual behaviors. Imagine the following situation: you've always placed a high value on financial security, but you start dating someone who is very financially unstable. In order to reduce the tension caused by the conflicting beliefs and behavior, you have 2 options. You can end the relationship and seek out a partner who is more financially secure, or you can de-emphasize fiscal stability importance. In order to minimize the dissonance between your conflicting attitude and behavior, you either have to change the attitude or change your actions. As mentioned earlier, people can also change their attitudes when they have conflicting beliefs about a topic. In order to reduce the tension created by these incompatible beliefs, people often shift their attitudes. So, my challenge to you is to honestly evaluate your attitude and make some positive change. Your attitude is showing.
This is Fred. If you like this video, make sure that you hit that like button below. Also, share this video with your friend. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Please subscribe to my channel or visit my website at www.StensonEnterprisesInc.com for more information on training and services. Keep it real, and I will see you next time.